My name is Reid Walker, and at 67 years old, I thought my days of heart-pounding emergencies were long behind me. Retired police detective enjoying Clearwater Beach with my 3 grandchildren when my phone buzzed. The text message made my blood run cold. Leave quietly. Don't tell your children. Their lives depend on it. I stared at those words, wondering if this was some sick prank. But 25 years in law enforcement taught me one thing: never ignore a threat. The cheerful sounds of my grandkids building sandcastles suddenly felt ominous as I scanned the crowded beach. If you're watching this from Florida's beautiful coastline, hit that subscribe button before I tell you how a perfect family day turned into my worst nightmare. Family has always meant everything to me. After losing my wife Janet to cancer 6 years ago, my daughter Amanda became my rock. At 42, she had created the beautiful family I was now privileged to be part of. Her husband Jack, 45, had always seemed like the perfect son-in-law. Successful investment banker, attentive father, and someone who appeared to genuinely care about Amanda. Their children were the light of my life. Tyler, 12, was a spitting image of his father with a sharp mind and natural athletic ability. Sophie, 9, had her mother's artistic talent and compassionate heart. Little Ethan, just 7, was a bundle of curiosity and energy who never stopped asking questions about my time on the police force. "Grandpa, did you ever shoot a bad guy?" he would ask with wide eyes. I would ruffle his hair and give my standard answer. My job was keeping people safe, not hurting them, even the bad guys. My career had spanned nearly 3 decades with the Tampa Police Department. I specialized in organized crime cases, putting away some of Florida's most dangerous criminals. My wall at home still displayed the commendations and newspaper clippings from my biggest cases. It was a past I was proud of, but one I tried to keep separate from my role as a grandfather. The past few months, I had noticed something changing between Amanda and Jack. Their phone calls seemed tense. Jack was working later hours, and Amanda would sometimes fall silent when I asked about him. During Sunday dinners, I caught them exchanging glances that seemed loaded with unspoken tension. "Everything okay with you two?" I had asked Amanda one afternoon while Jack was taking the kids for ice cream. "Just work stress," she replied, but wouldn't meet my eyes. "His investment firm is going through some changes. Nothing to worry about, Dad." But I did worry. That was my nature. 25 years of detective work had made me notice things others missed. Jack had become secretive, taking phone calls in other rooms. He seemed distracted around the children. His formerly impeccable appearance had grown slightly disheveled, with dark circles forming under his eyes. When Amanda called asking if I could take the grandkids for the weekend because she and Jack needed some alone time to work things out, I readily agreed. I figured they needed space to address whatever was causing the tension. That Friday morning had started perfectly. I picked up the kids early, packed a cooler full of sandwiches and drinks, and drove to Clearwater Beach. The weather was flawless, 85 degrees with a gentle breeze coming off the Gulf. The kids raced toward the water the moment we arrived. "Grandpa, watch this," Tyler shouted before diving through a wave. "Build a castle with me," Sophie called, already digging in the wet sand. Ethan clung to my hand, slightly afraid of the larger waves but determined to be brave. "I'll go in if you come too, Grandpa." For 3 hours, we built elaborate sandcastles, swam in the warm Gulf waters, and ate peanut butter sandwiches that immediately collected sand despite my best efforts. I bought them ice cream from a vendor walking the beach, and we laughed as Ethan's chocolate cone melted faster than he could lick it, running down his arms in sticky rivers. It was during this perfect moment, watching Sophie bury Tyler's legs in the sand while Ethan searched for shells, that my phone buzzed in the pocket of my swim trunks. Probably Amanda checking in, I thought as I pulled it out. The text was from a number I didn't recognize. "Leave quietly. Don't tell your children. Their lives depend on it." I stared at the screen, my heart suddenly pounding. Was this some kind of joke? A wrong number? My mind immediately started sorting through possibilities, old habits kicking in. I looked around the beach, suddenly seeing potential threats everywhere. The man reading under an umbrella, the couple walking along the shoreline, the teenagers playing volleyball. I hit call on the unknown number. It rang 4 times before going to a generic voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Another text arrived. They're watching. Act normal. Police are aware. My grandchildren's laughter now sounded distant as adrenaline sharpened my focus. If this was real, I needed to act now. If it was a hoax, I'd feel foolish later, but at least everyone would be safe. In my career, I'd learned that hesitation could be fatal. I forced a smile onto my face as I walked back to the kids. Years of training had taught me how to assess situations quickly. I scanned the beach methodically, section by section, looking for anything unusual. That's when I noticed him. A man standing on the boardwalk, wearing a light jacket despite the heat. His eyes were hidden behind sunglasses, but his head was clearly tracking our movements. When our eyes met, he turned away too quickly. "Who wants ice cream at that special place I told you about?" I asked, keeping my voice light and enthusiastic. "But Grandpa, we just had ice cream," Sophie pointed out, looking confused. "This is different. It's a surprise I've been planning," I said, already gathering our belongings. "We need to pack up now so we have time before they close." Tyler, always perceptive, gave me a strange look. "Are you okay, Grandpa? You look weird." "Just excited about the surprise," I replied, forcing another smile. "Come on, help me fold these towels." Ethan whined as I interrupted his shell collecting, but the promise of more ice cream eventually won him over. I moved with deliberate casualness, constantly scanning our surroundings while appearing to simply be a grandfather packing up after a beach day. My phone buzzed again. Black SUV near parking lot. Avoid it. My mouth went dry. Whoever was texting knew exactly where we were. They could see us, and somehow, they were trying to help us. "Let's go out the north entrance instead," I told the kids, pointing away from our usual path to the parking lot. "It's a shortcut." "But our car is the other way," Tyler protested. "Trust me on this," I said more firmly than I intended. We walked along the beach for another 100 yards before cutting up to the street. The extra 5-minute walk took us to the lot from a different angle. I could see my car now, a blue sedan parked under a palm tree, and 30 yards away, just as the message warned, a black SUV with tinted windows idled near the main entrance. "Game time," I whispered to myself. "Tyler, hold Ethan's hand. Sophie, stay right beside me. We're going to walk to the car quickly because there's a special surprise waiting there too." I kept my body between the children and the SUV as we approached my car. My keys were already in hand, thumb on the unlock button. Every muscle was tense, ready to react. We were 10 feet from my car when I heard car doors opening behind us. I didn't look back. "Run to the car, now!" I hissed, hitting the unlock button. The kids, sensing my urgency, sprinted the final distance. I yanked open doors, practically throwing Ethan into the back seat while Tyler and Sophie scrambled in after him. I jumped into the driver's seat and hit the locks just as I glimpsed men running toward the beach entrance in my rearview mirror. The engine started with a roar and I pulled out of the space faster than I should have, causing a driver to honk angrily as I cut him off. I didn't care. Within moments, we were on Gulf Boulevard, heading north away from Clearwater Beach. "Grandpa, you're scaring me," Sophie said quietly from the back seat. "Everything's fine," I lied, checking the mirrors constantly. "There's been a change of plans, that's all." "What about the ice cream?" Ethan asked. "We'll get some later, buddy. I promise." My mind was racing. I couldn't go home. If someone knew we were at the beach, they likely knew where we lived too. I needed somewhere safe, somewhere to think and figure out what was happening. "Are we going home?" Tyler asked. "Not yet. We're going on an adventure," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the Palm Tree Motel, a modest but clean place I remembered from an old case. I paid cash for a room at the back of the property, out of view from the main road. "Why are we stopping here?" Sophie asked as I ushered them into the room. "This isn't fun, Grandpa." "I know, sweetheart. I just need to make some phone calls. Then we'll figure out our next stop on this adventure, okay?" I turned on the television and found a children's channel. Watched this for a little while. Once they were settled on the beds with the TV for distraction, I stepped into the bathroom and closed the door. My hands were shaking slightly as I dialed Amanda's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Amanda, it's Dad. Call me immediately when you get this. It's urgent." Next, I tried Jack's number. To my surprise, he answered on the third ring. "Hello?" His voice sounded strained. "Jack, it's Reid. Where's Amanda?" There was a pause, and I could hear strange noises in the background. Muffled voices, perhaps. "She's out shopping," Jack said too quickly. "What's up?" "I need to speak with her right away. I'll have her call you when she gets back." Another pause. "Is everything okay with the kids?" Something in his tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Everything's fine," I said carefully. "When do you expect her back?" "Soon." "Look, I've got to go. Business call coming in." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. Something was very wrong. I had one person I could call, someone I trusted completely. Marcus Wright had been my partner for 15 years before he moved to the FBI. We still met monthly for beers and baseball games. If anyone could help me make sense of this, it was Marcus. He answered immediately. "Reid, what's going on?" "I need your help, Marcus. Something's happening, and I think my family's in danger." Marcus arrived at the motel room an hour later. By then, the kids were getting restless, confused about why our beach day had turned into being trapped in a dingy motel room with a television that only got 8 channels. "Uncle Marcus!" They cheered when he walked in, temporarily distracted from their boredom. Despite not being related by blood, Marcus had been a fixture in their lives since birth, attending birthdays and holidays like a member of the family. "Hey, kiddos," he greeted them with a warmth that didn't reach his eyes. He looked at me with silent concern. "I brought some snacks and games. How about you three check out what's in this bag while your grandpa and I talk outside for a minute?" On the concrete walkway outside the room, I quickly filled Marcus in on everything. The text messages, the man watching us at the beach, the black SUV, and Jack's strange phone call. Marcus listened intently, his expression growing more serious by the second. At 59, his hair had gone completely gray, but his mind was as sharp as ever. "I don't like this, Reid," he said when I finished. "Not one bit. Have you tried Amanda again?" Still going straight to voicemail. He nodded grimly. "Let me make some calls. I still have contacts in the Tampa PD who can do a welfare check at their house. What about the kids? If someone is really watching us. My sister Grace lives about 40 minutes from here. She's out of town this week, but I have her key. It's a gated community with security cameras. We can take them there until we figure this out." I hesitated, looking back at the motel room door. I don't want to frighten them more than they already are. Tell them it's part of the adventure, a scavenger hunt or something. While Marcus made his calls, I went back inside and explained to the children that we were going to play a special game. "We're secret agents on a mission," I told them, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. "And we need to move to our next safe house. Uncle Marcus is going to help us." Ethan was young enough to think this sounded exciting. Sophie remained skeptical, but went along with it. Tyler, however, pulled me aside while the others were packing up the few things we'd brought from the beach. "Grandpa, what's really happening?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm not a little kid. I know something's wrong." I looked into his eyes, so much like his mother's, and decided he deserved some version of the truth. "I got a message that we might not be safe at the beach. I don't know if it's real or not, but I'm being careful until I find out. I need your help looking after Sophie and Ethan." He absorbed this information with surprising maturity, then nodded. "I can do that." We transferred to Marcus's FBI-issued SUV, leaving my car in the motel parking lot. As we drove toward his sister's house, Marcus shared what he'd learned. The officers did a drive-by of Amanda and Jack's house. No response at the door, but both their cars are in the driveway. No signs of forced entry or disturbance. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "If they're both home, why isn't Amanda answering her phone?" Marcus waited until the kids were distracted by a game on his tablet before continuing in a lower voice. "There's something you should know, Reid. I wasn't going to tell you yet, but given the circumstances. He took a deep breath. Jack's investment firm has been on our radar for about 6 months now. Suspected money laundering for a Russian organization run by a man named Viktor Kazan. The name struck me like a physical blow. Kazan? Are you serious? Viktor Kazan had been a shadow figure in several of my old cases, a notorious money man for various criminal enterprises. We'd never been able to build a solid case against him, despite knowing he was behind at least 3 murders. The investigation is ongoing, Marcus continued. Jack wasn't initially a target, but some transactions flagged in the system. We've been watching, gathering evidence. My mind was reeling. Does Amanda know about this? We have no reason to believe she's involved. But if she discovered something... I closed my eyes, trying to process this bombshell. All those late nights Jack had been working. The sudden tension between him and Amanda. The financial strain they seemed to be under despite Jack's supposedly successful career. Pull over, I said suddenly. What? Pull over. Now. Marcus guided the SUV to the shoulder of the road. I got out, walking a few paces away, needing air. The implications were staggering. If Jack was laundering money for Kazan, and if Amanda had somehow discovered this, she could be in serious danger. I returned to the car, my resolve hardened. We need to get the kids somewhere safe, then you and I are going to find my daughter. At Grace's house, we set the children up in the living room with movies and enough snacks to last the evening. Marcus's sister had grandchildren of her own, so there were plenty of toys and games to keep them occupied. I'll stay with them, said Marcus's colleague Diane, a junior FBI agent who had met us at the house. You two do what you need to do. Before leaving, I knelt in front of my grandchildren. I need to go help your mom and dad with something. Agent Diane is going to take good care of you until I get back. Are mom and dad okay? Sophie asked, her eyes wide with worry. They're fine, I lied, hating myself for it. But they need my help with a surprise they're planning. Tyler gave me a knowing look but didn't contradict me in front of his siblings. You be good, I said, hugging each of them tightly. I love you very much. As we drove away, Marcus pulled out a folder from his briefcase. These were taken 3 weeks ago. The surveillance photos showed Jack entering a restaurant, then sitting at a table with a well-dressed man I recognized immediately as Viktor Kazan. In one image, Jack was passing an envelope across the table. We've been building the case slowly, Marcus explained. Kazan is careful. We need everything to be airtight before we move. And now my daughter might be paying the price for your careful approach, I said bitterly. Marcus didn't take offense. We're going to find her, Reid. I promise you that. Where do we start? Jack's office. After hours, there won't be many people around. If there's anything that can tell us where Amanda might be, that's our best bet. As we drove toward downtown Tampa, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. She found Ledger. They took her. Warehouse District. Breaking into an investment firm after hours wasn't something I'd ever imagined doing, especially not at my age. But some skills never leave you, even after decades of retirement. Jack's firm, West Shore Financial Partners, occupied the 12th floor of a glass tower in downtown Tampa. The night security guard was easy enough to distract with a fake delivery that Marcus arranged, giving us a 5-minute window to slip into the service elevator. You're enjoying this too much, I muttered as we rode up to the 12th floor. I spend most days behind a desk now, Marcus replied. Fieldwork is a nice change of pace. Using an electronic bypass tool on the keycard reader, we gained access to the darkened office space. Jack's corner office wasn't hard to find, his name prominently displayed on a wooden door. 10 minutes, Marcus said. In and out. We find what we can and leave before security makes their rounds. Jack's office was meticulously organized, with family photos displayed prominently on his desk. I picked up one showing Amanda and the kids at Disney World, their smiling faces a stark contrast to the knot of dread in my stomach. While Marcus went through the computer, I searched the physical space, checking drawers, looking behind picture frames, feeling under furniture. Nothing seemed out of place or suspicious. Got something, Marcus said after a few minutes. Hidden folder, heavily encrypted, but our tech guys gave me a back door. Looks like financial records, transfers to offshore accounts. I leaned over his shoulder, scanning the screen. The amounts were staggering. Millions of dollars moving through shell companies with names that changed every few months. "He's been doing this for years," Marcus said quietly. "Long before we started investigating." I moved away, anger and disappointment warring within me. How could I have missed this? I was supposed to be good at reading people, at spotting lies, yet my own son-in-law had been leading a double life right under my nose. "There's more," Marcus continued. "Emails, recent ones. Look at this exchange from 3 days ago." The email was from Amanda to Jack, sent during working hours. "Need to talk about what I found in the old tax files. Something doesn't add up with the Cyprus accounts. Coming to your office this afternoon." Jack's reply was terse. "Busy today. We'll talk at home." "She found something," I said, the pieces falling into place. "That's why they wanted alone time this weekend. Not to work on their marriage, but because she confronted him about whatever she discovered." Marcus was already pulling up the building's security camera footage. If she came to his office, it would be on the cameras. After scanning through hours of footage, we found it. Amanda arriving at 4:30, looking determined, then leaving at 5:15, visibly upset. But the most chilling footage came from the parking garage camera. As Amanda walked to her car, a black SUV similar to the one at the beach pulled alongside her. 2 men got out. There was a brief struggle before they forced her into the vehicle. "Damn it!" I slammed my fist on the desk. "That was yesterday afternoon. She's been missing for over 24 hours. "We need to find that SUV," Marcus said, already on his phone calling in the plate number to his team. As he made the call, I noticed something odd about Jack's desk. The blotter seemed thicker on one side. Lifting it, I found a small notebook hidden underneath. The ledger contained handwritten notes, dates, and amounts that corresponded with some of the transfers we'd seen on the computer. But more importantly, there was an address scrawled on the final page: 1780 Harbor Industrial Way. "The warehouse district," I said, showing Marcus. Just like the text said. Marcus ended his call and examined the address. "That's a derelict shipping facility. Been abandoned for years." "Then why write down the address?" "It means something. Reid, we need to call this in. Get a proper tactical team. That will take hours. Amanda might not have hours." We locked eyes, the old partner's silent communication still strong between us. 30 minutes, Marcus finally conceded. "We do reconnaissance only. If we confirm Amanda's there, we call for backup before making any move. Deal?" I nodded, though we both knew I was lying. If I saw a chance to get to my daughter, I wasn't going to wait for bureaucratic approvals. As we left the office, my phone buzzed again. She found ledger. They took her. Warehouse district. The same message as before. But now it made perfect sense. Amanda had found the ledger I was holding, or one like it. She had confronted Jack, and somehow that confrontation had led to her abduction. But who was sending the texts? And how did they know so much about what was happening? As we drove toward the warehouse district, I considered the possibilities. A concerned colleague of Jack's? Someone inside Kazan's organization with a conscience? Or perhaps Jack himself, trying to protect his family even as his world collapsed around him? The warehouse district was eerily quiet at night. Most of the buildings were abandoned or used only for storage, with minimal security. Harbor Industrial Way was particularly desolate, a row of crumbling concrete structures that had once been part of Tampa's busy port operations. Number 1780 stood at the end of the street, a massive warehouse with broken windows and faded lettering. But unlike its neighbors, this building showed signs of activity. 2 cars were parked outside, and light spilled from windows on the second floor. "That's Jack's Audi," I whispered as we parked a block away and approached on foot. We took cover behind a dumpster, observing the building. A man with a visible shoulder holster stood smoking by a side entrance. Every few minutes, he would pace the perimeter before returning to his post. "Armed security," Marcus noted. "This isn't legitimate business. How many do you think are inside?" No way to know without getting closer. "But Reid, we need to call for backup now. This is confirmation that something illegal is happening here." Make the call, I agreed, surprising him. But I'm going to get closer, try to see inside. Reid, I'll be careful. Just get that tactical team here as fast as you can. While Marcus retreated to make his calls, I circled the warehouse, staying in the shadows. Years of experience had taught me how to move silently, how to remain unseen even in sparse cover. At the back of the warehouse, I found a loading dock with a door slightly ajar. Voices drifted out into the night air. The boss wants this finished tonight, someone was saying. The woman knows too much. What about the old man and the kids? Separate problem. Team 2 is handling it. My blood ran cold. They were talking about Amanda, about us. I needed to get inside now. As if answering my thoughts, a black sedan pulled up to the front of the warehouse. Through the gaps in the loading dock doors, I watched as Jack emerged from the passenger seat, escorted by a tall man in an expensive suit. Jack looked disheveled, his normally perfect appearance now rumpled and stained. There was a visible bruise on his cheek. They entered through the front, giving me the opportunity I needed. I slipped through the loading dock door into the shadowy interior of the warehouse. The space was vast, filled with old shipping containers and forgotten machinery. But there were lights and voices coming from an office area at the far end. Staying low, I moved from cover to cover, making my way closer to the office. As I neared, I could make out the conversation more clearly. She's your wife, Jack. Make her understand that cooperation is the only option. The voice was cultured, with just a trace of a Russian accent. Kazan. She doesn't know anything important, Jack was pleading. The ledger just had addresses and dates, not names or details. Yet you felt the need to warn her father. To send those texts, my heart skipped a beat. It had been Jack all along, trying to warn me, to save his children. I didn't send any texts, Jack protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Your phones are monitored, Jack. Did you really think we wouldn't know? Now the old detective is involved, and the situation is messier than it needed to be. Just let Amanda go, Jack said, his voice breaking. I'll cooperate fully. I'll take responsibility for everything. It's too late for that. The ledger is just part of the problem. Your wife has seen faces now. She knows names. Please, Victor. We've worked together for 7 years, and you've been well compensated for your services. But business is business, and loose ends must be tied up. There was a pause, then Kazan continued in a colder tone. All loose ends, Jack, including those children. No, Jack's voice rose in panic. They have nothing to do with this. They're innocent. I had to grip the edge of a shipping container to keep from charging forward. The threat against my grandchildren made my vision blur with rage, but I forced myself to stay focused. Getting caught wouldn't help anyone. Call the old man, Kazan was saying. Find out where he's taken them. I won't do that, Jack said. And for the first time, I heard real strength in his voice. Do what you want to me, but I will not help you hurt my children. The sound of a slap echoed through the warehouse, followed by Jack's grunt of pain. You'll make the call, or we'll make your wife make it. Her cooperation might improve after some persuasion. That was enough. I knew Amanda was here, and she was in immediate danger. I needed to find her before Kazan's men could carry out their threats. Backing away from the office area, I began systematically searching the ground floor of the warehouse, looking for any sign of where they might be holding her. The warehouse was larger than it appeared from outside, a labyrinth of abandoned machinery and stacked crates. I moved silently through the shadows, ears straining for any sound that might lead me to Amanda. From what I had overheard, time was running out. Kazan's patience was clearly wearing thin, and Jack's refusal to help them locate the children would only buy us a limited window of opportunity. I checked my watch. Marcus had been gone for 20 minutes. Even with his FBI connections, a tactical team would take time to mobilize and approach carefully. I needed to find Amanda before then. A flicker of movement caught my eye near the far wall. Another guard, this one carrying a handgun openly at his side. He was standing near a staircase that led to the warehouse's second floor. If I were holding someone prisoner, that's where I'd keep them, I thought. Away from the ground floor exits, in a controlled space, the guard's presence confirmed my suspicion, but getting past him would be a challenge. I was in good shape for my age, but taking down an armed man silently wasn't a risk I was willing to take. Fortunately, decades of police work had taught me that even the most disciplined guards have weaknesses. I watched him for several minutes, noting how he checked his phone repeatedly, seemingly bored with his assignment. I picked up a small piece of metal from the floor and threw it across the warehouse, where it clattered loudly against some machinery. The guard immediately tensed, drawing his weapon and moving toward the sound. As soon as he was out of sight of the staircase, I moved quickly across the open space and up the metal stairs, wincing at every small creak of the aged structure. The second floor was divided into what had once been offices. Most of the doors hung open, revealing empty rooms with broken furniture. But one door at the end of the hallway was closed, with light visible underneath. I pressed my ear against it, hearing nothing. Taking a deep breath, I tested the handle. Locked. Decades ago, I would have kicked it open without hesitation. Now, with a replaced knee and 67 years of wear on my body, I needed another approach. I examined the lock, a simple office door mechanism. From my wallet, I removed a credit card and an old police department ID card, tools I'd carried out of habit for years despite rarely needing them. It took longer than it would have in my prime, but after a minute of careful manipulation, I felt the lock give way. Holding my breath, I eased the door open. The room had once been an executive office, with large windows now covered by heavy blinds. A desk lamp provided the only illumination, casting long shadows across the space. Amanda sat in an office chair, her hands bound to the armrests with zip ties. There was a bruise forming on her cheek, and her normally perfect hair hung limply around her face. But her eyes, when they met mine, flashed with the same determination I'd seen in her since childhood. "Dad," she whispered, disbelief and hope warring in her voice. I pressed a finger to my lips as I crossed quickly to her side, examining the restraints. "How did you find me?" she asked, keeping her voice low. "Got your messages?" I replied, working on the zip ties with a pocket knife. "Clever girl." Confusion crossed her face. "What messages?" Before I could respond, the zip ties gave way, freeing her hands. She immediately reached for me, pulling me into a fierce hug. "They're going to kill me," she whispered against my shoulder. "They said I know too much." "Not while I'm alive," I promised. "Can you walk?" She nodded, rising shakily to her feet. "Jack's involved with these people, Dad. He's been laundering money for them for years." "I know. Marcus and I found his ledger." Her eyes widened. "The FBI is involved?" "Tactical team on the way. But we need to get out of here before they arrive. Things could get chaotic." We moved to the door, listening for any sound from the hallway. Hearing nothing, I eased it open and peered out. The corridor remained empty. "Stay close to me," I instructed. "Walk softly, and if I signal you to stop, freeze immediately." She nodded, her lawyer's mind quickly processing the seriousness of our situation. We made it halfway down the hallway before disaster struck. A door opened ahead of us, and a guard emerged, stopping short when he saw us. For a frozen moment, we stared at each other. Then he reached for his weapon. I shoved Amanda behind me, preparing to charge the man despite the futility. But before either of us could move, another figure appeared behind the guard. Jack swung a heavy metal object, striking the guard in the back of the head. The man crumpled without a sound. "Jack," Amanda gasped. He stood over the unconscious guard, breathing heavily, the impromptu weapon still clutched in his shaking hand. When he looked up, his face was a mask of desperation and regret. "They're going to kill us all," he said, his voice barely audible. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Amanda stepped forward, her expression hardening. "You've been laundering money for criminals. What did you think would happen?" "It started small," Jack said, his words tumbling out now, "just moving some money through accounts that were already established. The commissions were huge, and we were struggling with the mortgage after I was passed over for promotion." "So you decided to become a criminal?" The contempt in Amanda's voice was palpable. "I didn't know who they were at first," Jack insisted. By the time I realized, I was already in too deep. They had records, evidence. They said they'd send me to prison, that you'd lose everything. And now we might lose our lives, she shot back. I stepped between them. Save it for later. Right now we need to move. Jack nodded, seeming to pull himself together. There's a service exit at the back of the warehouse. It's not guarded. Why should we trust you? Amanda demanded. He sent the warning texts, I explained. He's been trying to protect you, in his own way. Jack's eyes met mine, surprised that I had figured it out. One of Kazan's men, he explained quickly. Pavel, he has a family too. He let me use his phone to warn you when they brought me in. He's been keeping me updated about what's happening. We need to move now, I repeated. Lead the way, Jack. He nodded, stepping over the unconscious guard and guiding us down a different corridor than the one I had used. Kazan is in a meeting in the front office, he whispered. 3 guards on the main floor, one upstairs who I just took care of. The service exit leads to an alley behind the building. We descended a narrow staircase that opened into a storage area filled with empty wooden crates. The exit door was visible at the far end, a sliver of streetlight visible beneath it. Almost there, Jack murmured. We had just reached the door when a voice rang out behind us. That's disappointing, Jack. I thought we had come to an understanding. We turned to see Victor Kazan standing 20 feet away, flanked by 2 armed men. He was exactly as I remembered him from my days on the force, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. Only the cold emptiness in his eyes revealed the monster beneath the polished exterior. No one needs to die here, Victor, Jack said, stepping forward slightly. I'll come with you. I'll fix everything. Just let them go. I'm afraid we're well beyond that point, Kazan replied with false regret. Your father-in-law has now seen my face. Your wife knows too much about our operations. The situation has become untenable. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. Marcus and his team were on their way. If we could just stall for a few more minutes. The police are coming, I said, making sure Kazan heard the sirens too. This building will be surrounded in minutes. Then we should conclude our business quickly, Kazan replied, unperturbed. He nodded to one of his men, who raised his weapon and pointed it directly at Amanda. Wait, Jack cried, moving to stand in front of her. Kazan, please, I'm begging you. Step aside, Jack, Kazan ordered, his voice hardening. Or you can watch her die before it's your turn. The sirens were getting louder now, multiple vehicles by the sound of it, but they wouldn't arrive in time. Jack looked at Amanda, then at me. In his eyes, I saw a decision being made. I'm sorry, he said softly. For everything. Then he lunged at Kazan. The movement caught everyone by surprise. Jack slammed into Kazan with enough force to send them both crashing into a stack of crates. The guards hesitated, unwilling to shoot for fear of hitting their boss. Run! I shouted to Amanda, shoving her toward the exit door. As she wrenched it open, I turned back to the chaos. Jack and Kazan were grappling amid the splintered wood of the broken crates. One guard was moving to separate them, while the other was bringing his weapon to bear on me. I dove behind a concrete pillar just as the first shots rang out, concrete dust exploding near my head. The years fell away as adrenaline took over, muscle memory from decades of police work guiding my movements. When the guard paused to adjust his aim, I emerged from cover and charged, hitting him with the full momentum of my body. We crashed to the floor, his weapon skittering away across the concrete. Despite being younger and stronger, he wasn't prepared for the desperate ferocity of a man protecting his family. I struck him hard, once, twice, until he stopped struggling. Rolling away, I grabbed his fallen weapon. The second guard was now trying to pull Jack away from Kazan. I aimed carefully and fired, the bullet striking the concrete near the guard's feet. He jumped back, turning toward this new threat. "Police! Drop your weapon!" I shouted, falling back on old training. The guard hesitated, then raised his gun toward me. A shot rang out, but not from either of our weapons. The guard staggered, then fell, revealing Marcus standing in the doorway, his service pistol still raised. "FBI! Everyone down! Now!" Behind him, tactical officers in full gear poured into the warehouse, securing the area with practiced efficiency. Jack was still on top of Kazan, his hands locked around the older man's throat. 2 officers pulled him away, while others secured Kazan, who was gasping for breath. "Jack?" I moved toward him as the officers handcuffed him alongside Kazan's men. He looked up at me, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. But there was something else, a dark stain spreading across his abdomen. "He had a knife," Jack said, his voice weak with shock. "Didn't see it until too late." I knelt beside him as an officer called for medical assistance. "Hold on, Jack. Help is coming." He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "The kids, are they safe?" "They're safe," I assured him. "They're with Marcus's sister." Relief washed over his face, followed by a grimace of pain. "Amanda?" She made it out. "She's okay." He nodded, then coughed, a trickle of blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I love her. I never wanted to hurt any of you." "You can tell her yourself," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I could see the light fading from his eyes. Marcus appeared at my side, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Paramedics are 2 minutes out." Jack's grip on my wrist was loosening. "The children," he whispered. "Take care of them." "I will," I promised. "I always will." He nodded once more, his eyes closing as he lost consciousness. Amanda burst back into the warehouse, flanked by FBI agents who had secured the perimeter. When she saw Jack lying on the floor, she broke free from them and ran to his side. "Jack? Jack!" She fell to her knees beside him, taking his limp hand in hers. "He's alive," I told her, though I wasn't certain how long that would remain true. "Paramedics are coming." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. The anger from earlier had vanished, replaced by raw fear and grief. "He saved us," she whispered. "After everything, he saved us." I could only nod, watching as the paramedics finally arrived and began working on Jack with urgent efficiency. They loaded him onto a stretcher, Amanda refusing to let go of his hand until they reached the ambulance waiting outside. As they drove away, sirens blaring, Marcus came to stand beside me. "Kazan's in custody," he reported. "Along with 6 of his men, we found documentation that will dismantle his entire operation." "And the men who were after my grandchildren?" "Intercepted by local police based on the information I called in. They never got near the safe house." I exhaled slowly, the tension of the past 24 hours finally beginning to drain away. "What happens now?" I asked, watching as FBI agents led a handcuffed Kazan toward a waiting vehicle. "Now," Marcus said, "we pick up your grandchildren and tell them their parents love them very much. The rest can wait until tomorrow." The children were asleep when we arrived at Marcus's sister's house, curled up together on a pull-out sofa bed. I stood in the doorway watching them breathe, overwhelmed by how close we had come to losing everything. "Did you tell them anything?" I asked Diane, who had stayed with them throughout the ordeal. "Just that you were helping their parents with something important," she replied. "They asked a lot of questions, especially the older boy. But eventually, they wore themselves out." "Thank you," I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being, "for keeping them safe." She nodded, understanding the weight behind my words. Marcus and I decided to let them sleep rather than disturbing them with more upheaval. I took up position in an armchair near the sofa bed, unwilling to let them out of my sight. "I'll come back in the morning," Marcus said as he prepared to leave. "We can figure out next steps then." I nodded, too emotionally exhausted for further conversation. Throughout the night, I received updates from the hospital. Jack had survived surgery but remained in critical condition. Amanda was staying at his side, her own minor injuries having been treated in the emergency room. As dawn broke, Tyler was the first to wake, his eyes finding me immediately. "Grandpa," he said, sitting up carefully to avoid disturbing his siblings. "Is everything okay now?" I beckoned him over, and he climbed into the armchair with me, something he hadn't done in years. Despite his efforts to act grown up, he was still just a 12-year-old boy who sensed his world had shifted overnight. "Your mom is fine," I told him quietly. "Your dad is in the hospital. He was hurt while protecting her." Tyler absorbed this information solemnly. "Were they in danger because of those men at the beach?" I should have known he would make the connection. He had always been perceptive. "Yes, I admitted. "But the danger is over now. The police have arrested the bad people." He leaned against me, processing this information. "Is Dad going to be okay?" The honest answer was that I didn't know. Jack's injuries were severe, and the doctors had been careful not to make promises they couldn't keep. "The doctors are doing everything they can," I said instead. "He's very strong." Tyler seemed to accept this, at least for now. "What happens next?" "First we go see your mom, then we'll figure everything else out together." By 9 o'clock, all 3 children were awake, fed, and dressed in clothes that Marcus had brought from their home. I had given Sophie and Ethan a simplified version of events, explaining that their father had been hurt while helping the police catch some bad men. "Like a superhero?" Ethan had asked, his 7-year-old mind processing trauma through the lens of his favorite stories. "Something like that," I had replied, not having the heart to complicate the narrative. Marcus drove us to the hospital, the children unusually quiet in the back seat. As we walked through the sterile corridors toward the intensive care unit, I felt Tyler take my hand, something he hadn't done in years. On my other side, Sophie and Ethan clung to me like lifelines. Amanda was sitting outside Jack's room when we arrived, her face pale with exhaustion. When she saw her children, she broke down, gathering all 3 into her arms as if to assure herself they were real. "Mom, are you hurt?" Sophie asked, touching the bandage on Amanda's forehead. "Just a little bump," Amanda assured her. "I'm okay." "Is Daddy okay?" Ethan asked, his lower lip trembling. Amanda looked up at me, uncertainty in her eyes. "How much should they know?" "Your daddy was very brave," she said finally. "He fought a bad man who was trying to hurt me. The doctors are helping him get better." "Can we see him?" Tyler asked. Amanda hesitated. "He's sleeping right now, and has a lot of machines helping him. It might be scary." "I'm not scared," Tyler insisted, though his tight grip on my hand suggested otherwise. After a brief conversation with the doctors, they agreed to let the children see Jack briefly, one at a time. Tyler went first, standing stoically beside his father's bed, looking tiny next to all the medical equipment. Jack was pale beneath his tan, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines that beeped and hummed constantly. The knife wound had damaged his liver, requiring extensive surgery. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, but warned that the next 48 hours would be critical. Each child had their moment with their father, saying the things children say to parents they believe are invincible. Promises to clean their rooms. Updates on school projects. Sophie left her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked beside Jack's pillow, a talisman against the unknown. Afterward, I took the children to the cafeteria while Amanda spoke with the doctors again. As they picked at sandwiches and fruit, I tried to answer their questions as honestly as possible without adding to their fear. "Is Dad going to jail?" Tyler asked bluntly, showing once again how much he had pieced together. The question caught me off guard. "Why would you think that?" "I heard you talking to Uncle Marcus about Dad's work, about bad people." I chose my words carefully. "Your dad made some mistakes in his work. He got involved with people who weren't good. But he also helped the police catch those people, and that counts for a lot." "So he's not going to jail?" Sophie asked, her voice small. "I don't know exactly what will happen," I admitted. "But what I do know is that your dad loves you very much, and he was very brave yesterday." This seemed to satisfy them for the moment, though I knew there would be many more difficult conversations in the days ahead. When Amanda joined us, she looked marginally more hopeful. "His vitals are improving," she reported. "The doctor says that's a good sign." For the next 3 days, we established a routine. The children and I would spend mornings at the hospital, afternoons doing activities to distract them, and evenings at my house where they were staying temporarily. Amanda remained at the hospital, returning only to tuck them in at night before going back to Jack's side. On the 4th day, Jack regained consciousness. His first words, according to Amanda, were asking if the children were safe. By the end of the week, he had been moved out of intensive care. The legal implications of his actions remained uncertain, but Marcus had arranged for him to be kept under guard at the hospital rather than transferred to a detention facility. When the children were finally allowed to speak with their conscious father, it was a moment of mixed emotions. joy at seeing him awake, confusion about the police officer stationed outside his room, and lingering fear about what the future held. "I did some bad things," Jack told them frankly, his voice weak but determined. "I made mistakes that put our family in danger. I'm going to have to face consequences for that. But I want you to know that I love you more than anything in this world, and everything I did, I thought I was doing for you." Tyler, always the most direct, asked the question that was on all their minds. "Are you going to prison?" Jack looked at Amanda, then at me, before answering honestly. "Probably, yes, for a little while, but not forever. And when I get out, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you." Ethan climbed onto the bed, careful of his father's bandages, and laid his head on Jack's chest. "I don't want you to go." "I know, buddy," Jack said, tears in his eyes as he stroked his son's hair. "I don't want to go either. But sometimes when you do wrong things, you have to accept the punishment." It was the most honest conversation I'd ever heard Jack have with his children. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, someday, this broken family might find a way forward. 2 weeks after the warehouse confrontation, Jack was well enough to be transferred. Thanks to his cooperation and the fact that he had ultimately helped bring down Kazan's operation, he was offered a plea deal. 5 years in a minimum security facility, with the possibility of parole after 3. It wasn't ideal, but it was far better than the 20-plus years he had been facing initially. Jack accepted the deal without hesitation, telling Amanda, 3 years is a small price to pay for the rest of our lives together, if you'll still have me." On the day before Jack was to be transferred, I took Amanda for a walk outside the hospital while the children visited their father. "What are you going to do?" I asked her, the question that had been hanging between us for weeks. She was silent for a long moment, watching a flock of birds wheel overhead. "I love him," she said finally. "Despite everything, I love him. He made terrible choices, but in the end, he was willing to die to protect us. That doesn't erase what he did." "No, it doesn't, and I'm still angry. I probably will be for a long time." She turned to face me. "But I'm going to wait for him. The children need their father, and I need the man I married. The real one, not the one who got caught up in Kazan's world." I nodded, understanding her decision even if I wasn't entirely comfortable with it. "You know, you and the kids always have a home with me, whatever happens." She hugged me tightly. "I know, Dad. We couldn't have survived this without you." The next day, we said our goodbyes as Jack was transferred to the federal facility where he would serve his sentence. It was a solemn moment, the children clinging to their father as if they could prevent his departure through sheer force of will. "I'll write every week," Jack promised them, "and you can visit once a month. This isn't goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now." As the corrections vehicle drove away, Amanda stood with an arm around each of her sons. Sophie balanced on her hip despite being too old for such treatment. The tableau of a family fractured but not broken. "Let's go home," she said finally, turning away from the disappearing vehicle. "We have a lot of healing to do." 6 months passed. Seasons changed. Wounds, both physical and emotional, began to heal. Amanda had sold their house, unable to bear the memories it contained, and moved into a smaller home closer to mine. She returned to her law practice, specializing now in financial fraud cases, turning her painful experience into a way to help others. The children adjusted with the remarkable resilience of youth. There were nightmares at first, especially for Tyler, who understood more than his siblings. But gradually, these faded. They spoke with their father weekly by phone and visited monthly, returning from these visits with drawings and stories to share. Jack, by all accounts, was a model prisoner. He taught financial literacy classes to other inmates and participated in every rehabilitation program available to him. In his letters and calls, there was a humility and openness that had been missing before. As for me, I found myself busier than I had been since retirement. Between helping Amanda with childcare and processing my own complicated feelings about the entire ordeal, there was little time for the quiet reflection I had once filled my days with. One evening in early fall, I sat on my back porch watching the children play in the yard. Tyler was teaching Ethan how to throw a spiral, while Sophie conducted an elaborate tea party for her stuffed animals under the oak tree. Amanda joined me, handing me a cup of coffee as she took the seat beside mine. "They're doing well," she observed, following my gaze to her children. "They are. Kids are surprisingly adaptable. More than adults, sometimes," she agreed. "I met with Jack's lawyer yesterday. He thinks with continued good behavior, Jack might be eligible for release after 2.5 years instead of 3. I nodded, unsure what to say. My feelings about Jack remained complicated. The man had endangered my family, but he had also nearly died trying to protect them. It was a contradiction I hadn't fully reconciled. "Dad," Amanda said, reading my expression, "it's okay if you never forgive him completely. I understand." "It's not about forgiveness," I replied slowly. "It's about trust. I don't know if I'll ever trust him again." "I don't know if I will either," she admitted, "but I'm willing to give him the chance to earn it back. That's all any of us can do." We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the children play as dusk settled around us. "You know what I keep thinking about?" I said finally. "How quickly everything can change. One moment, we're building sandcastles at the beach. The next, fighting for our lives in a warehouse." "That's the scary part," Amanda agreed. "The not knowing. But also the beautiful part," I countered. "Because if things can go bad in an instant, they can also go right just as quickly. A random act of kindness, a moment of bravery, a decision to do the right thing, even when it's hard." She smiled faintly. "When did you become so philosophical?" "Around the time I turned 65, I joked. "It comes with the gray hair, mandatory wisdom." Her laughter was a balm to my soul, a sound I had feared I might never hear again during those tense hours at the warehouse. As night fell, the children came inside for dinner, bringing with them the boundless energy of youth. Over pizza and salad, they shared stories from school, arguments over whose turn it was to pick the movie for family night, and the 1,000 insignificant details that make up a normal family evening. Later, after the children were in bed, I prepared to drive home to my empty house. Amanda walked me to the door, hugging me tightly before I left. "You saved us," she whispered. "I don't think I've properly thanked you for that." "You don't need to thank me," I replied. "That's what family does. We save each other." As I drove the short distance to my own home, I reflected on the lessons of the past 6 months. I had learned that even good people can make terrible mistakes when motivated by fear or desperation. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing, but rather choosing to move forward despite the hurt. That family bonds can survive even the most severe tests. Most importantly, I had learned that it's never too late to act with courage. Jack, despite years of poor choices, had found the strength to stand against Kazan in the end. I, at 67, had summoned the skills of my younger days when they were most needed. We were all works in progress, flawed and struggling, but capable of growth and redemption. The next morning, I picked up the children for our regular Saturday outing. As had become our tradition, we visited the beach, though a different one than that fateful day. Together we built sandcastles, collected shells, and waded in the gentle waves. As I watched Tyler help Ethan navigate the shallows, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. The future remained uncertain. Jack's eventual return would bring new challenges. The children would grow and face their own struggles. Life would continue to be unpredictable and sometimes painful. But standing there with the sun warm on my face and the sound of my grandchildren's laughter in my ears, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, we would face it together. And somehow, we would be okay. What would you do if you received a mysterious text warning you about danger to your family? Have you ever had to make a split-second decision that changed everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to hear more tales from my years of experience. Remember that even in our darkest moments, family can be our greatest strength. Thank you for listening. And until next time, hold your loved ones close. Life can change in an instant, but love endures through it all.